Guys, you know where it would be so cool to record this podcast?
Wow.
A shipping container.
Oh my God, it would.
That would be cool.
Yeah. Would we need to be shipped somewhere, or do you think we could be docked?
I like the idea of us going across the Indian Ocean on a shipping container, purpose designed and built. Somali pirates trying to board.
Yes, absolutely. I was thinking more Life of Pi, tiger attacking me, but cool. We can be. I love we've both gone for being attacked.
In the Indian Ocean.
Yeah, for some reason.
Well, you know that I could protect you both. I think that's why. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Why are you laughing at me?
I feel very safe in your presence.
Thank you very much.
I'd also feel very safe in a secure, watertight shipping container.
Purpose designed.
Purpose designed. Do you know what? You actually can insulate them to be soundproof, all of that kind of stuff.
Who could do that though?
Lion containers are the obvious choice, I think.
Lion containers. They're back.
They're back, baby. Did they ever go away, Will?
They never leave you. Once you go lion, you never go crying. No.
Yes! There it is. That's more, Lion. That's more.
If you want your own podcast studio, home shed, whatever it might be, head to lioncontainers.co.uk.
Welcome to 4 Wales, Sea Wales with me, Will Hayward.
Me, Mel Owen.
Me, Robin Morgan.
And me, Rhun Iorwerth.
Wow, we have got a guest, guys. A guest. It's the Plaid Cymru leader, Rhun Iorwerth.
Yes, it is. That's very good.
It's me.
You said it almost as well as I do, so yeah, that's very good.
Diolch yn fawr.
Croeso.
So, Plaid Cymru leader, for those of you who don't know, you've been the leader of the party almost for exactly 2 years now.
Yeah. June 23.
June 23. How has it been?
I mean, it's an amazing honour, you know, to lead a party, to lead a team, especially with an election kind of approaching. It was approaching then; it's really approaching now, and to be leading a party that's in a good place is particularly good. But it's pretty intense, it must be said.
Yeah, because I just to give a bit of introduction how this is going to work. We're going to have a bit of a chat about you. We're then going to have some delicious treats, and then in the second section, we're going to get more into kind of the scrutiny side of it. And then in the third part, we've got some quick fire questions, which are going to be, I hope, quite entertaining. Firstly, you were not always a politician. You were once in, the greatest profession in the world. You were a journalist.
Yeah, I still consider myself to be a journalist. I'm still a member of the National Union of Journalists. And yeah, I went into journalism after university. Was very, very fortunate to have an incredibly interesting, fulfilling career. Became chief political correspondent, BBC Wales network correspondent for the BBC. Got to travel the world doing non-news stuff as well. And then an opportunity came 13 years ago to put my name forward in the constituency where I live and I call home. So I had to kind of make a big call, which is Ynys Môn, the wonderful Isle of Anglesey, the very furthest place away from Cardiff you can get in Wales, which has its challenges. But I had to make the call, and it was a period of real soul searching, and it ended up with me reading the news on a Friday evening and being the lead story on the Sunday.
So, had you always had your eye on it then? When, how does that come about?
No, I mean, it was opportunity really, in that I'm not somebody who shops around for somewhere to stand. The only place I could really have ever stood was the place that I lived. But I was, in a career that, as I said, that was very, very fulfilling. I was enjoying it immensely. But my predecessor, who used to be a leader of Plaid Cymru, Ian Wyn-Jones, decided to call a by-election. He had, done incredibly well to get some money to establish a science park, which exists on Ynys Môn now. Absolutely amazing. And he decided he would give up on his political career to go and run the science park and get it going. And he did a really good job, which meant that I could, if I wanted to, make the switch without having to give up a career and campaign for a few years without a salary and so it was possible to happen. But also, and I've talked about this before, something happened in my life then that kind of changed perspectives on everything. I'd lost my mother a few months previously, and at that time of change in your life, you do look at things a bit differently. And it was a matter of, seize the day. I'd grilled politicians, I'd quizzed them and held them to account for 20 years almost. And it was, right then, you're only here once, put your own head on the block. And I did it.
Your mum was a Welsh language campaigner.
She was. I mean, she was a wonderful, wonderful woman who very, very quietly. She was a teacher by profession, but she was a member of the Welsh Language Board. She was a past president of Mudiad Ysgolion Meithrin, the Welsh Preschool Playgroups Association. She was a past president of Merched Awr, the Welsh WI. She was, had she lived, going to be the president of the Congregationalists Church in Wales, which Gwynfor Evans had been in years gone by. But she was a wonderful woman who was a great influence on me, and she's not seen any of this career of mine that began after she passed away. But of course, she's with me every day.
I would find that tough. So my mum has pretty much everything I've ever wrote, and I've written some shit. It must be weird, her not knowing what you've gone on to do.
Yep. Very much so, and I think about that a lot. My dad's now moved next door to us, so I see Dad a lot, and he was the most political of the two of them. So he was also a head teacher, but he was more a Plaid Cymru campaigner when I was growing up. Mum wasn't really supportive, but that wasn't her bag really, going out and campaigning. But to think that Mum, who would be so proud, hopefully, of most, if not everything that I do, hasn't been here to experience this quite significant part of my life is something that I think about a lot.
Do you think that family impacts, obviously we're at the precipice now where a lot of people are shifting their political ties that they may have had for 20, 30, 40 years. How much do you think family impacts how you vote?
Oh, it certainly does. It depends on the family. It depends how much of a part of the family's chat politics may or may not be. My wife's family are very, very supportive of me, but it would have been a very different attitude towards politics in her family growing up to mine. Not sure they'd have maybe talked about politics as much as we did. But family is one of those things that can help sway people in a particular direction. And we often say that one of the big pluses that Labour have been able to take advantage of over the years is the fact that mum and dad and grandmother and granddad, nine and tide, always voted Labour, therefore I will. But you're right, Robin. People are becoming more curious, I guess, about what else there may be out there. We all want to keep our own supporters loyal, but we always want to attract new supporters, otherwise you don't get any change in Welsh politics. And I think that's kind of interesting now, in that there is a real sense of an appetite for change in Welsh politics, which clearly opens the door for Plaid Cymru.
You got a lot, in the same way Leanne Wood did in the mid-20-teens. As soon as the general election happens, many people outside of Wales realise Wales exists for a bit. What show was it on where it was one of the most cringy interviews ever, where essentially they couldn't say your name, then they hadn't really done any research on Wales whatsoever.
Was it the Good Morning Britain
Good Morning
one?
Britain.
Yeah.
I wanted to scratch my own skin off watching it. I was so embarrassed for them.
What was it they said?
But interestingly, I mean, that has been watched hundreds of thousands, millions of times, and young people absolutely love it. They recite it back to me.
I was about to do it. I'll stop. It's fine.
Because it was standing up for Wales and what was right for Wales and explaining what an injustice was. And it was an interview. Rob Rinder, the presenter, he asked me before going on air, how do you say your name? And I said Rhun Iorwerth, and he repeated Rhun Iorwerth perfectly. It was just some television nerves or something that meant he tripped up over my name, so that he could say my name. Yeah. That's the first thing. But absolutely, the presenters could not get the HS2 injustice and the fact that Wales was paying for a new railway line in England. And I hopefully was able to explain in fairly clear terms why it was ridiculous. But
it was so ridiculous. That's why they couldn't get it, because it was almost so ridiculous.
It was Kate Garraway, wasn't it? And at one point she looked around the studio and I don't know if she was looking for help, but people assumed that she was looking for help at that point, because this guy had come down from Wales and seemed to know what he was talking about and was holding his own. And it was very early in the morning, so I was glad that I had a good night's sleep. But those kinds of interventions can be very, very powerful. You can only deal with every interview as it comes. I couldn't plan for that, but hopefully maybe that's something I can bring to the table, which is that I enjoy doing this. I enjoy conversations and the opportunity to explain some things about politics, hopefully in an understandable way.
I think what was maybe successful about that clip as to why so many people felt like so enthused by it is because even for somebody who's completely apolitical, there was somebody who was explaining something very clearly and people who did not know what they were talking about. Yep. And I think that in politics, we don't have enough of that, right? We don't have somebody going, regardless of party, regardless of politics, these are the facts and this is why this is wrong. And I think that's why so many people were so engaged by it.
And of course, you try to do that all the time. You try not to speak in, acronyms and jargon. You try to explain things in a palatable and understandable way. Sometimes you do better than others, and that one worked pretty well.
Do you think the journalist in you that helped, having that background in terms of communication and things?
Well, I hope so. Everything that I did as a journalist was based around trying to tell a story in a way that people could understand. And even when you're in a television news studio with an autocue in front of you, you'd write all your own stuff, and you write it all in a way that hopefully is easy on the ear. And it's the way that I approach my politics. And as I say, sometimes you get it right, and sometimes maybe you don't.
You must have thought when this was happening, obviously a bit of you's like, oh, it's annoying that they don't really get it, but you must have thought ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching from an electoral position.
Yeah, and I...
Actually.
I sent my wife a text at the end and said they had no idea, and I'm not going to criticise. Journalists have briefs in front of them. I've presented breakfast news programmes for years myself, and you have to do lots and lots of interviews within the body of one
those journalists
programme.
are not unique in that position.
Exactly,
and I'm not
criticising them, but it's the quality of the brief that you have, whether you happened to pick up on something in that brief. So it's not a matter of I got one over on the presenters. That's not how I see it at all. Was I able to explain through the chats that we had something that was pretty important in the context of the election that we were fighting.
But also, I think in the clip, what came across was a feeling that I think every Welsh person has ever had at some point, was this is about Wales, do we really give a shit?
Yeah.
And I think that was the air that came across from them.
And we come across it all the time. I've seen it all the time in my life, where people do not give a monkeys about Wales. It's part of why I've always been driven towards wanting Wales to take responsibility for its own future. Westminster, UK government don't understand Wales, aren't interested in it, and a big part of me says, why would they be? Just leave it to us. Let's have a good relationship with you and find a really good way of cooperating. But let us crack on.
Okay, we'll come on to that in a bit. I think the thing with HS2, which was interesting, is that I don't know anybody who thinks that the decisions around HS2 are right, except for whoever happens to be the UK government at the time.
Yeah.
Because the Welsh Tories are against it, Welsh Labour are against it, Plaid are against it, everyone's against it.
But we're the only ones who've always been against it, and that's the difference. I mean, that's what you get from Plaid, I guess. We'll only look at things from that sort of Welsh perspective and what's right for Wales. The Tories had enough of a chance when they were running UK government to say something, and they decided to stay quiet. Labour were very supportive of giving us the HS2 cash, and Joe Stevens famously, of course, called for more money for Wales than Plaid Cymru even did. I think we used 4 billion, she used 4.5. Suddenly they come into power. They don't want to know anymore. The injustice remains, and people know it.
Can I ask you about talking about Wales and the attitude to Wales in England? I genuinely think that when I hear in Wales a lot of people saying, England act as though England go out of their way to kind of screw over Wales. I actually think the main thing that Wales suffers from is just complete apathy. I don't think anyone really thinks about it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, which is why I said, just leave us to it. I understand why you don't get Wales. The attitude, and I in those election campaign debate programmes last year, I went into those debates as the only representative from Wales, but wanting to make what I said about Wales relevant to the English audience. I wasn't just talking to the audience in Wales, and hopefully that kind of worked as well, and it certainly won me and our cause support amongst people who weren't taking part in the election in Wales, but they could get what we were talking about, be it on HS2 or a host of other issues. You know, I don't think for a second that England or English people are inherently, anti-Welsh. It's just a lack of.
I feel like sometimes they are, but that's what I mean. When I'm with Will.
Yeah, it's just that lack of understanding and that feeling that Wales isn't relevant to them. And I say, well, yeah, let us crack on and build our own nation.
In terms of apathy, one thing that I always feel like should be addressed here is the voter turnout in Wales. Is that something that you implied are concerned about?
Yeah, I mean, it was something that was important to as a journalist in the build-up to every election for years and years. I don't know how many elections I covered as a journalist, but it was always about, what can we do to try to educate people about the relevance of this election, whichever election it was, persuade people, how to register and to get involved in politics. So it was important to me sort of professionally then, and certainly for us now. We want as many people to engage with politics in Wales as possible. Now there's not that much of a difference between how many people vote in Welsh elections and vote in the most recent UK general election. There's a lack of this apathy is something that we always should be trying to address.
It's 20 percentage points higher in Scotland, though, typically.
Yeah.
It's why do the Scots just give more of a shit about the country? Do they think their vote matters more? What do you think it is?
Yeah, I think Scotland have been on a journey that further than us on the road towards this, recognising the importance of Scottish politics to the people of Scotland, explaining why decisions taken in the Scottish Parliament are particularly important to people. It's a big part of what we want to talk about in the next year. Listen, vote for us, engage with what we're saying, because actually it can make a difference to your lives. It's something that collectively we haven't done as well as we can across all political parties over the past 26 years, but we keep digging away because there's a heck of a lot at stake.
Do you feel like the general public are understanding devolution much better since COVID, for example? I think from a layman's point of view, they feel like there was a boost in understanding as to the fact that things were different depending on what side of the border you were. Do you think that has then had a positive impact in people's interest? Yeah,
I mean, it sort of turbocharged the understanding of what was relevant about decisions that were taken by Welsh government as opposed to UK government, and discussions that were had in the Welsh Parliament rather than the UK Parliament. And there were some pretty explicit things done at that point that affected people's lives. Borders being closed down, for example, at times. Different rates of lockdowns. It really did have an impact on people, and I think that's a good thing because we need people to understand where decisions affecting them are made. And of course, even more and more so over the past quarter of a century, it has been here in Wales. And who is chosen to run Welsh governments, really does matter.
So I actually spoke to you in the Senate a couple of weeks ago and asked what delicious treat you wanted to have on here. So Drakeford got a platter of cheeses.
He didn't ask for it, we insisted.
He demanded it as a condition of coming on. Obviously said he would kick the fuck off.
Direct quote.
Direct quote. Verbatim.
James Evans wanted birthday cake.
Well, he got birthday. It was his birthday.
He demanded birthday. He demanded birthday cake.
We'll keep both of these
and
versions.
No further devolution. So I asked you what you wanted, and what did you say?
Well, I'd just been presented with an all-new snack. I think it was the day before. And it was my daughter that made it for me. And I told you, didn't I, that it was a little delight of a little date with a little bit of peanut butter on it and some walnuts.
Now,
on the top.
I messaged you saying we've got the ingredients, but we hadn't bought walnuts. What had we bought?
Hazelnuts.
Hazelnuts.
Is this a disaster?
Well, I'm guessing it may be.
Okay.
But I'm always open to new things as well. So
Right.
I'm looking forward to trying your date if you have some.
Rob from
with
Heyman Media has
hazelnuts.
got a platter.
Oh,
Bring it
goodness
in.
me.
Bring it in.
I will say this sounds like my perfect
Rob loves
snack.
being in front of camera so much, you've got to walk in front of it.
Thank you, Rob.
Oh,
Thank you, Rob.
wow.
Oh, isn't that amazing?
These are beautiful.
Look at these.
Oh, we don't need a spoon with those.
Oh, okay.
Just grab those.
There you go.
Okay. Right.
We're
Right,
just grabbing.
so we
Oh,
grab
you
one of those, do
obviously
we?
go first,
and try
yeah.
one. So this is with hazelnuts.
With hazelnuts.
How was your first date with a political leader, Rob?
This is absolutely wonderful. I'm heavily allergic to nuts, so best of luck.
Remember, you insisted on this.
I think it's very, very good. But Will,
You bought your own walnuts.
well, to spare your blushes, I thought I'd bring some walnuts so you could try how they're meant to be. I praise your hazelnuts. They're very, very good.
You've raised
It's
us
a
a
very
walnut.
different kind of snack.
You just got Garrawayed. This is the new Kate Garraway clip.
So
we're removing-
I think a whole one's a bit too much, so maybe.
Okay.
Let's remove a hazelnut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of break mine in half. Is that one mine?
Go on,
Yeah, you
crack
go
on.
for it. A bit of walnut.
Okay.
This is very claggy for
Oh,
a podcast.
you know what?
I bet this is incredible audio.
You look like you're levitating.
It's very, very good. It's also rather healthy.
Sometimes.
One of those in moderation things, but that's very nice.
Your daughter's onto something. This is my perfect snack.
good, isn't it?
Peanut butter, dates, nuts.
What are you going to name it?
For Wales sea walnuts.
Nice. Nice. That was
mean-
unplanned as well.
That's,
Could it be like...
That's delicious.
Yeah. Well, given that you were going to bring me something, I thought I can't just receive your gifts without giving something back.
We genuinely have no idea what he's
No,
about to
you
do.
don't.
No, and this has never
I did
happened
that.
before.
It's a
Hasn't
cease and
it?
He's
desist.
taking... Why is he taking his shirt off?
So this one, right? You said on a program recently
Oh no, I'm sweating.
Yeah, I'm
that
nervous
you
now.
liked fruits to be just fruits. You didn't like fruits in things.
Oh yes,
Yeah?
I did.
And you certainly didn't like pineapples on pizzas. So I bought you a little pineapple.
Hey.
Just as a
Diolch yn
pineapple.
fawr iawn. Thank you. I feel
welcome.
like I've won a BAFTA.
You're holding it like a BAFTA. I love that for you.
I would like to thank
So
all Wales, Sea Wales.
I bought you one of those.
Oh
Bless
yes.
you.
Robin's got a banana.
That's very, very kind.
Yeah, but you like to dunk it and things.
Yes.
So I bought you one of those as well.
Goodness gracious.
Banana milk.
Oh,
Did you bring
have-
all of this down from
No,
Anglesey?
I went shopping in Newport today. Oh. And Will,
Oh, thank God.
I hear you like unicorns. Right? So you can't eat unicorns,
You can't.
Famously.
but you can eat sweet corn.
Some super sweet corn on the cob.
Bit of butter on that, and that's your
stick on the
supper.
barbecue.
That's your supper tonight.
Please don't have
We're
it
going
raw.
to eat well
like
tonight.
a-
Thank you. This is very
Well,
sweet.
I bet they thought he is having a fucking wild night in. And you went to M&S and you bought
Yeah,
some
yeah.
corn, a banana, a
Yeah,
banana
well,
milkshake, and a BAFTA.
I didn't buy the banana and the banana milkshake in the same shop because that would have been weird. So I
Yeah,
thought,
yeah. This
Yeah.
guy's got a problem.
yeah.
I mean, you've done this very cleverly just before the scrutiny part of this. So we're going to go to a break and then we will come back and I'm going to pretend you didn't just buy me one of my 5 a day. So, recent poll suggests Plaid could be the largest party. There's been other polls that have suggested that as well. In terms of the way the seats would work, the only real way for anyone to realistically form a government is to have Plaid Cymru part of it. So, all the caveats of fighting for every vote, there is a good chance that you could be the next First Minister. If there is a Plaid Cymru government, obviously this will depend on coalitions, etc. But what would a voter voting for Plaid Cymru expect in the first 100 days if you got in?
I mean, a number of things we've specifically said we would want to do. You know, an emergency health budget is one that we've talked about to get the ball rolling on dealing with the emergency backlog in the NHS estates, to start moving on the preventative budgeting that we want to see happening. You'd see work beginning on starting to turbocharge the Welsh economy with the establishment of our new sort of development agency for Wales. I think people would see a whole host of things starting immediately within the first 100 days because this is all about now not just getting people to vote for us, which is rather important in an election. It's about making sure we're ready to govern. So everything that we're doing now is all about setting up what we'd exactly, be doing right at the very start of from May, June next year.
Okay, so fast forward to the next election after 2026. How does Wales look different in terms of public services after 5 years of Plaid?
Well, I could talk specifics. I could talk about sort of hopefully starting to see the impact of some of the actions that we want to take on health. Though we know, it takes time to turn things around. You will see an increase in the money that is going in and attitudes towards keeping us a healthier nation in terms of the preventative agenda. You would, I think, hopefully start to see a change in education and sort of the approach around going back to basics a little bit on especially numeracy and literacy. So I think you would absolutely see a change, but there's a different way of looking at it as well. One of the things that holds us back as a nation is a lack of confidence, I think, and we see that from Welsh Government too. And I want people to see in Plaid Cymru's leadership that is really confident in what we can achieve as a nation, in the way we negotiate with UK government, for example, not getting everything we want immediately because I'm not daft, but in being pretty uncompromising in our approach to what we think is right for Wales. I think people will see a big shift in attitude in Welsh Government in that first Plaid Cymru-led term.
Okay, so let's stay on health then. Mark Drayford came on and said we have too many hospitals in Wales. Do you agree?
Yeah. I know what he meant by that, but what we want to make sure is that we have the right facilities in the right place. It is not a matter of closing hospitals because we have too many hospitals. It's about making the most of the facilities that we do have and using hospitals in a good way. In the north of Wales, for example, you have 3 district general hospitals. There are arguments to say that is too many, but nobody is going to suggest that you close one down. What you can do, though, is make sure that you invest in the estate that we have to get more out of it. So I get what he meant by that. Per population, there are lots of district general hospitals, but we can use those facilities well in order to bring waiting lists down.
So where would that money come from to invest in the estates you already have? I looked around UHW recently in Cardiff, where Wales' largest hospital, I think the 5th largest hospital in the UK, and it is in such a sorry state. Like, water is just pouring through the ceilings, asbestos all over the place. The lack of digital infrastructure is appalling. The investment that would need would be seismic.
Yeah.
There is a fairly strong argument that you might not get any additional money from Westminster.
Yep.
Where does you move the money from in order to do those investments?
It is a very, very long programme to deal with all the backlog of repairs that are needed in Welsh hospitals. You're talking years and years, and you basically just start that process. What we have said is that we will deal with the very most serious emergency backlogs, and we've identified, and it's tens of millions, not hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds for that we would want to budget for immediately from within budgets. Because you have to recognise also that you are wasting money by not having facilities that are able to be used to their greatest extent. We've seen what's happened in Bridgend recently, haven't we? And that decisions on removing treatment from one place, moving it to another, that all costs money. So you budget for emergency backlogs, which we will do, and then you just start a programme of dealing with a huge hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds of backlog that just haven't been dealt with by Labour. But you've got to be honest with people. This is going to take a heck of a long time because it's a heck of a serious situation. And the stuff that you showed from UHW is mind blowing. But it's all over Wales.
But in terms of capital investment, budgets are really, really stretched.
Yep.
I don't understand where that money is going to come from. Because we haven't really got any tax raising powers to speak of. We've got some. They're minimal, aren't they?
Yeah, and we might want to come on to that later. You've got to work within the budgets that you have. And for example, one of the things that we'll be talking about over the next year is how we move towards preventative spend. And you're absolutely right. It's not a matter of saying, we've found £500 million under the mattress, because there ain't £500 million there. It's about prioritising, and it's about making the most of the money that you already have. So, for example, I've been talking in the Senedd about investments that can be made in giving a heads up to hospitals when norovirus is about to hit. We've got that technology in Wales. It doesn't cost a lot of money. Norovirus and closing wards costs millions of pounds every year. If we can get Welsh Government to make modest investments in the right place, we can save money. That is something that can be done right now. And across the NHS, there are very good examples of that. And what I see more than anything, answers to some of the problems that we have in ophthalmology are there. Ophthalmologists have the answer. Welsh Government isn't doing it. Orthopaedics. The plan for regional centres has been laid out by orthopaedic consultants for years. Welsh Government isn't doing it. There are better ways of
They've
spending.
started doing hubs now, though, haven't they?
Well, but in a more expensive way than the orthopaedic surgeons themselves suggested it could happen. I'm not going to knock everything that Welsh Government does now on health, but we know that in sum total, it hasn't been working over 26 years, and we need a new approach. And sometimes, you can't chuck masses of money at it. You've got to find clever ways of working. And that's a lot of that is involved in the plans that we have already laid out as a party.
So your health spokesman said that they are floating the idea of massively increasing money into primary care. Where does that come from? Does that come from secondary care?
Ultimately, you have to save money from secondary care in order to spend on primary care.
So secondary care is hospitals.
That's it. The really, really expensive bit. And the longer you leave things untreated, the more expensive it is to treat in secondary care. You nip something in the bud in primary care. 90% of our contact with the NHS is through primary care, but it gets something like 7% of the overall budget. We need to nudge that up in order to identify problems earlier, solve them sooner, which is better for the patient, but also in a cheaper way. And this is, again, part of that preventative revolution that I want to see happening across the NHS in Wales. And I've already said that I would have a public health minister in my government that would be responsible for preventative as well, really focusing in on this. Preventative health spending is going down under this current Labour government. It's never going to be sustainable like that. Never.
I want to ask you about coal tips. So Plaid Cymru have spoken extensively about coal tips and the threats that they pose to communities, which I don't think anyone can argue with. Ultimately, this is a question of money. For kind of listeners who aren't aware, coal tips built up when we had huge mining communities, especially in South Wales. They are often above areas where lots of people live. Because that responsibility for that is now devolved, the UK government say this is the responsibility of the Welsh government. But the Welsh government, the Welsh Labour government, argue that no, that isn't fair because all of this was built up before devolution. The UK government have given some money, but nowhere near enough to get rid of those tips. Now, if you've said you want to tackle the coal tips, if the UK government continue to say you are not going to get extra money for this, you're not going to get all the money you need, would you tackle them in a different way? Or would you how would you do it? Because the money would have to be pulled out of another budget.
Yeah, and the money isn't there in Welsh budgets. And I'd make the case very, very clearly, and there are plenty of precedents around this. This is a problem that was caused before devolution, and therefore it's a responsibility of UK government. I'm very, very clear about that. You could make a comparison with the contaminated blood scandal, a scandal that struck before devolution had come about, and it is accepted that the bill for that, the compensation bill, which is incredibly slow being dealt with, but that is the responsibility of UK government. I think it's a principle, and we keep on making the case. And of course, Welsh government has had to dip into its own money in order to contribute a little bit towards the work. But Welsh Government, frankly, only asked for £25 million from
They have said
Labour.
they need more.
Well,
Lynette Morgan last week said she needed more.
But Lynette Morgan, the First Minister, said that they had asked for £25 million and got £25 million. Now, it's £25 million better than nothing, but it's clearly not close to what is needed. I talk about this in a film, a Channel 4 film that came out this month. It's very, very important, and it's a matter of principle that UK government has to pay for this, and they, as they have to in some other areas like contaminated blood.
Now, I would tentatively suggest that the Treasury couldn't give a shit about the principles of it. They don't care about HS2. There's been the examples with the refunding for national insurance contributions, which they haven't followed, even though every person can see that that's an injustice. What difference does it make that it's you asking rather than Leonard Morgan asking?
It makes a difference because we keep on asking. We don't sort of say, can we have a bit and then back away? We keep on making the case. And everything will tell you that you have to campaign, you have to make the case time and time again. Same happened with the highest level of European funding. Plaid Cymru led the charge asking for Objective 1. Remember back in the 1990s? Answer, no. You keep on making the case again, and you rattle the cage, and you keep on arguing the case, and you embarrass governments to do things, and sometimes you win, sometimes you don't.
Do you
but
have
the way to
public
not
spats
win,
in a way? Is that what you're suggesting?
what I've said is I want to have a constructive relationship with any UK Prime Minister. Clearly, that means Keir Starmer now. I want to make the case in a way that doesn't try to save face for Labour. That's pretty clear about where I stand, and then you have a proper negotiation. Lynette Morgan made that speech about a red Welsh way.
Well done.
I think is her.
You do have to warm up for that one.
You have to
Take
warm
a
up
run
for it.
for that.
Well, and it's nonsense, of course, because she's talking about wanting to sometimes, if it's not too awkward, and on some issues, and not on others, maybe to little bit push back on what Keir Starmer's saying. Well, that's no good. You've got to make the case. And you've got to be, constructive, as I say, but willing to always push the agenda on this rather than back away, which is what you're always going to get with Labour, because Lynette Morgan doesn't want to embarrass Keir Starmer. I want to have robust conversations with him, not winning on the first opportunity or the second perhaps, but keep on making the case. And Scotland do it very, very successfully.
Well, as you bring up Scotland, the SNP's the big stick that they have to wield is independence, isn't it?
Yeah.
They say, we need this. Mm-hmm. If you don't give us it, we should have independence because look at what those bastards back in Westminster are doing to us. Will the threat of independence, do you think a Plaid Cymru government makes that stick, well, firstly, exist?
Yes.
And do you think that Westminster will react to that?
I've no doubt that it exists, and it's Plaid Cymru that's speaking publicly about it. I've said that there won't be a referendum in sort of the first term of a Plaid Cymru government, but it's a live issue, and that's very, very important, I think. And I think the flow of support towards independence has been very, very notable in recent years. And I think it's the more we make the case for where injustice exists, the more people are interested in taking control of our own destiny. It happened between 1979 and 1997. Wales voted heavily against devolution in 1979. And a mere 18 years later, which in politics isn't too long a time, Wales had decided, because of what the Tories did in those years, we can't afford to leave everything in the hands of Westminster again. So it was a tentative step. A few years later, Wales took a very bold 2-1 in favour of turning that Senedd into a lawmaking parliament. The more people understand what's at stake on the Crown Estate, on HS2, on the Barnett formula, the more they say, that this isn't right, and we can't just accept that this is as good as it gets for Wales. And we already have the constitutional, or the Independent Commission on the Constitutional Future of Wales saying, independence is viable. I've always thought it's viable. It's my job to persuade the people, not force them, but persuade them. But it's a live issue, and I think that's very, very important.
I appreciate we're a year out and a lot can happen between now and next May. However, at the moment, it does, feel like Plaid's messaging about independence has been quieter. Has that been a conscious choice? Is that a fair judgment, would you say?
Yeah, people tell me that. I was accused last year in the election saying, why don't you mention independence in your manifesto? It was on page 1. So, it's kind of, people know that we're in favour of independence.
It contrasts with Adam Price, though, didn't it?
Well, I think all of us support the notion of moving as quickly as we can towards being brave enough, being confident enough to say, come on, we can be better than this. The way we approach that as individuals might be a little bit different, but we're all agreed that that's the journey that we are on. It's my job to bring people with us on the journey. I'll talk about it every day because it's a good way to explain to people what I think independence is. It's a redesigning of the relationship between countries and these islands in my mind. It's not separatism or breaking away. It's building something up. It's the opposite of Brexit. It's not burning bridges. It's building new relationships. It genuinely excites me. But it's in the hands of the people of Wales. I'll talk about it every single day, but we've got lots of things that we need to get on with now as well, and health, education, economy, and so on. And these are really, really important.
These issues that you're talking about in terms of calling up Keir Starmer or Rachel Reeves and having, these battles, you might not win one, but you might win the next one. Is there something, what's number one on your priority list, if, in those first 100 days as potentially being First Minister?
Yeah, I mean, that first meeting with Keir Starmer, I'll be mapping out what those things are that I want to see movement on from UK government sooner rather than later, and I'll be making the case. And I'll try to understand why they're saying no, so that we can sort of negotiate harder. And we know what they are. HS2 is one of them. Crown Estates would be another one. I suppose the main one, though, has to be a new funding formula for Wales, fair funding for Wales. Labour, when in opposition, were very, very supportive of rapid moves towards bringing a new system in instead of the Barnett formula, which is the system that has been out of date for decades
since it came in.
Since it came in, essentially, it was only a short-term measure. At the time, but we've had it for decades and decades. We need that to be changed, and I'll be making the case on that front, and doing it where I'll tell Keir Starmer, listen, I'm going to keep on asking, but I want to hear your take as well. Why do you think we shouldn't be given this fair funding? Let's have that negotiation in a transparent way, and hopefully move towards a situation where that sort of unfairness can be dealt with.
Okay. You mentioned you'd want independence now, if you could.
Yeah, I mean, it's not up to me, though. Yeah,
it's not. But ultimately, you're the leader of a party whose main raison d'etre ultimately is the independence of Wales.
Well, it's about I package it in reaching Wales's potential.
Okay,
that's all it is to me, and I've always been convinced that we're not going to really reach our potential until we're sort of like all those other countries, not particularly small. Wales isn't particularly small.
But you're running to be leader of Wales, aren't you?
Yep.
You want to lead Wales,
Yep.
and if you're making the statement, I would like Wales to be independent tomorrow. I spent a lot of time looking into this issue, and we can go through a whole range of things, but what would be your currency?
But we have done a lot of work on this.
I've read it.
And there are essentially sort of a number of different options. The best one probably would be Wales's own currency. And given that we're moving more and more towards non-cash currency anyway, you can imagine in years to come where that doesn't become an issue. You can imagine in the past, you've got to keep different currencies in your wallet. No, that wouldn't need to be the case. But this is all up to Wales. It can be keeping the pound. It can be a number of different options. That's all part of the negotiation on when Wales decides that it wants to become independent. Yeah, there are a whole host of options on all of these.
Yeah, but say that idea of Wales having its own currency. That, let's call it a punt. Is that a Welsh word for pound?
Pint.
Yeah. Oh, that's close enough. Sorry, I fucking lost our audience there, didn't I?
You took a punt on it.
I took a punt on it, and I pinted it right into the gutter. If you were to have a Welsh currency, you then come down to questions of whether you allow that to float, in which case it would, in all likelihood, plummet in relation to the pound, or you peg it to another currency, in which case you then need a strong central bank, which will do it. Now, I appreciate you've come on this podcast. You've given us some corn. I don't want to go too much into the weeds of discussing.
No, please do. We need to.
Okay. Realistically, if you're making that pitch of why I think Wales could be independent, how long does Wales maintain having the pound before it moves to its own currency? Because there is a whole host of real issues around that, isn't there?
Oh, yes, and not ones that I'm going to say, right, it's got to be this, and this is why. This is exactly the kind of work that needs to be done, the debates that we need to have as a nation. It was great taking part in the work around the Independent Commission on the Constitutional Future of Wales, and essentially feeding into that what the options are. Options around the border, options around currency, options around a whole host of matters on funding, because these aren't issues that are cast in stone. Every country's different. I've been chairing the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association in Wales for the best part of a decade now. And the reason I enjoy my work with other parliaments across the Commonwealth is you have every conceivable model of countries having decided to take different levels of control into their own hands. All sorts of options. And the debates for Wales, that I want to encourage to happen is to look at all those options and decide what works best for us.
Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating, though. Can you see how if you're saying to someone, yes, I think we should be independent, and then every question is kind of, well, that's a debate for us to have, that's for an independent Wales to decide, that feels almost a bit Brexity, doesn't it? That everything it'll be good after we've made the decision. Shouldn't the vision for an independent Wales have a bit more meat on the bones?
But that's why there is no referendum now, because I don't think we're at the point where we're able to have it, because people deserve surely to be able to take part in that debate on the future of their country and what the options would be. It would have challenges and it would bring opportunities. And again, coming back to the Commission, it basically spells out exactly that. There are challenges here. But what I say always is, there are challenges with what we have now. And we have to be realistic in that it's because of our situation within the UK that we have a stagnating economy, that we're unable to sort of have that sort of that funding level that we want or control it. There's no perfect situation that we're in now, is there? So why not have that debate on, is there something else that we can do? And to me, it's about redesigning the relationship between us as nations.
This it wasn't on my list to actually ask you specifics of independence, but my point is, if you're making that case of, I would like, because like you said, I'd like us to be independent now. Like I feel that as a leader, if you're saying that, like I would hope that you'd have those answers on the tip of your tongue. This is how this is going to work. This is how we'd want it to do with EU membership and stuff like that.
No, it doesn't work like that at all. I mean, there was a Brexit referendum. We were asked to leave the European Union on a
but that was shit. Like, we don't want that.
Exactly, and there isn't a referendum on independence in Wales now because we need to get to grips with all these issues. There are a whole host of options. I believe in the future of Wales. We've laid out a number of options. You've asked one on currency, and you asked which one would be best, and I said, well, actually, the one that would work best would be our own currency. That's up to Wales. So I can give you some answers where I think we're at, but this is going to be a national venture. It's not Rhun Iorwerth deciding on the direction that Wales goes. It's the people of Wales, and I've always been excited about sort of getting to grips with those issues, because what we have now is not as good as it gets for Wales.
Not to be Craig Williams about this, but if I were to place a bet,
I wonder where you're going now.
I was like, whoa,
very good.
Whoa, lawyers.
Yes, but he did place a bet. We know that much. If I were to place a bet on the result of an independence referendum tomorrow, I would bet quite heavily that the answer would be no.
Yep.
Why do you think a country, as we are currently, would vote against its own independence? Why is that where we're at as a society?
Well, because I don't think we're quite there yet. I mean, there's been a massive shift in recent years. There's been a huge shift. It was sub 10% answering, do you want Wales to be independent? Not that long ago. And now it's regularly, always 20, 25, 30 plus. Some in younger groups, it's 50% plus, 60% among the younger ones. There's been a massive, massive shift. But that's the politics of this as well. I mean, we want to bring people with us. Surely, this is not about forcing anything on anybody. It's a journey we're on.
I think what is a question for a lot of people outside of Wales often ask is, why is there not the appetite? Like, we see the appetite in Scotland. I think for a lot of people in Scotland, the question is when, not if.
Well, there's a comfort blanket element to it that, things are pretty bad for me, but it could be worse. Well, how about things are pretty bad for me? We can do better than this. And I've always thought about it positively in those terms. I get that people, are maybe fearful of what this might mean. So it's our job to explain it. And what better way than to actually do a bit of work with government, interested in answering some of the questions. And, I think I find that exciting anyway.
When I've chatted to people about it from outside of Wales, they sometimes do liken it to a Brexit in terms of a
total opposite.
So can you go into that a bit more in terms of, like, obviously talking to other governments and building bridges?
Yeah,
But
what I always took from Brexit, was that it was, we don't need them. We can do it ourselves, and we're going to put them over there, and as I said, burn some bridges, build up walls, and from the outset, when you have an emerging nation, and it happens, it has happened many times in many countries over the years, it's got to be done in a positive way. I see it as a negotiated way where you put the case for how we work with our partners. It's a new brand spanking new relationship with
there
our
are
closest
elements of
friends,
the
England,
indie movement
you know?
that are we don't need them.
Well,
but there is definitely that.
It's pretty small. I mean, I'm just not an isolationist. I'm an internationalist, and I always have been. You know, we redesign the relationship between us. I think it works better for everybody.
I'm going to move it away a little bit. I want to speak to you about the thing I mention to you every time, and you give me the same answer, and I think we're going to do it again.
Coalitions.
We're going to do our dance. I'm going to talk. Yeah, I'm going to talk to you about.
I asked everybody when I was a journalist as well. I get it.
Did they give you an answer?
Sometimes. I mean, I have an honest take on it. So ask your question, and we'll see where we get.
So alongside Labour and the Lib Dem, you voted for a system which ultimately guarantees that some kind of coalition or cooperation in a formal way is required.
Pretty much, yeah. Probably. Yeah.
So there is no way we're going to come out the other side of May 2026 without that. I would like...
But the question is, though, what's that? And that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So when someone puts an X next to the Plaid Cymru box, I think it's only fair that they have as much information available to them as what that vote means. Are there parties, firstly... Let's talk big picture. Are there parties that you wouldn't deal with?
I mean, we're not going to work with Reform, are we? And I can't see a way we work with the Conservatives because of the damage that they've caused. And I haven't seen a sort of road to Damascus kind of change in attitude from the Conservatives right now. But let's strip it right back, okay? Relationships between political parties can take many, many forms. And that's really, really important. So on the seat projection from this poll, recent poll, it's the best evidence that we have of maybe the way people are thinking. We don't know. It's not an election. It's only a poll. But the seat projection, I think somebody suggested 35 seats for Plaid Cymru.
35 and then 30 for Reform.
That would be 36.4% of the entire seats. In Scotland in 2007, the SNP got what percentage of the seats?
I have no idea.
36.4. Mm-hmm. Was there a coalition? No. They ran government as a minority. So one option is to deal with things on a base, issue by issue. It's not easy, right? It's full of difficulties. SNP actually did it, and it set Scotland off on a new trajectory. So you've got to remember that one option is that there isn't a formal relationship with people. So that's one way forward. And then you can have all sorts of things, sort of budget deals, you can have coalitions, you can have confidence and supply deals, and so on. Some kind of way to secure a stable government. And people can guess, and I've mentioned we're not going to work with Reform, are we? But who's more likely to maybe cooperate in some ways? But that doesn't have to be a coalition at all, and that's really, really important for people to remember. And the key thing is we decide that after the election when people have dealt the cards.
I just wanted to ask, before we move on to the next bit, about how you guys are selecting your MSs and the order on that list, because you're going to have to talk me through what the rules are, because people who are sitting MSs could quite easily be losing their seats now, couldn't they?
Yeah,
people like Luke Fletcher.
We're a Democratic Party. We took the decision that we want to try to secure a balance between men and women in the Senate. We hoped that it was going to be in legislation. It's not, because Labour backed out of that, but we're going to do it ourselves because it's the right thing to do. So we have a system essentially which says you have a list of candidates. If the top is reserved for a woman specifically, the second one can be open, man or woman. The third one is a woman. The fourth one is open, and so on. And that's how we choose candidates.
And if the first one is a man, the second one has to be a woman.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, that's what I meant. So it's like a zip.
It. So it's a zip.
It's a zip.
It's a zip.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there are 16 constituencies, so 8 of them have a woman at the top, and 8 of them are open. So yeah. So
has that caused any disquiet within the party? I imagine you have sitting MSs who are like, shit.
Well, I mean, it's any new system is challenging. It's essentially the same as choosing candidates for the old regional lists in the Senedd, and actually the way Senedd members will be elected to the Senedd next year is exactly the same as the old regional list method. So it's not entirely new, actually. But yeah, any new system can be disconcerting. But we as a party, certainly on the zipping and promoting a more representative Senedd, as a party, we've been pretty supportive of that.
Okay, so in this final section, we're going to throw some quick fire questions at you. Okay?
Be kind, be kind.
Some of these are kind, some of these I think are frankly hilarious. Who is your favourite English person?
My favourite English person would have to be my mum.
I was going to say
take that
Will
part.
Hayward was sat right
Yeah.
here, but that is a better answer, actually.
Or maybe I am.
I mean, to be fair, she was brought up in Wales, but she was one of the Liverpool Welsh.
Ah, right. Drinking our water. Favourite pizza topping?
Not pineapple.
Thank you,
I'm with you.
thank
Hence
you.
giving you the pineapple. Favourite?
Yeah.
Oh, pepperoni. Yeah, I'm quite...
Can't go wrong.
But with a little bit of chili oil on it. to give
Or
it a
chili
bit of-
oil.
Robin's just
A
sitting
man
silent.
of
Yeah.
culture.
I like that, it's fine. It's all right.
Absolutely. How do you feel about the new Andouja craze?
Yeah, any kind of salami. Yeah,
Yeah,
good.
you're on it.
Yeah.
Fair. Okay.
Sorry,
What's that?
Andouja,
like a
it's like
salami.
a salami, but it's
Yeah.
a bit sweeter, right?
Yeah.
I had Andouja and hot honey, and I'll be honest with you guys, it was too much.
amazing.
Oh, you
yeah,
like
they
it?
do one in Cardiff Bay, don't
They
they?
do,
Everyone upstairs.
Yes,
can we-
yeah.
If
I
you're
don't know,
just
that'd be
tuning in
me.
now, this is a food podcast, isn't it?
It's just Mel and Reen's favourite sausages.
and it's not even a round pizza, is it?
No,
It's-
exactly.
No, it's
yes,
not.
yeah.
But nice.
Yeah. Thank you, Will. Carry on.
No, please go. Who is your favourite opposition politician in the Senate?
Oh, favourite opposition politician. Oh, I get on with people right across the political parties. I have Jane Bryant sitting in front of me now in the Senate. She's great. I've played rugby with a few from opposition parties. Yeah, we get on well, and that's an important thing to remember.
Go on, who's your favourite?
Favourite? I don't know. I get on with lots of them, really.
Who do you hate?
Oh, none of them. Of course not. So I've named Jane because she's lovely. Yeah.
Okay. What is the worst pronunciation of your name anyone has ever done?
The worst one might be a spelling, actually, which I tweeted at the time, which was Trina Iorwerth. And it was a taxi picking me up with Trina Iorwerth. And I looked at it, Trina Iorwerth. Oh my gosh, that's me, that is.
Is that your alter ego?
Yeah. So, yeah, that was a particularly good one.
Yeah, Starbucks. You must have got some great ones at Starbucks before.
Yeah, and I remember... My name isn't difficult to say, but it's difficult to read. So it's Rhun ap Iorwerth. It's not difficult to say, but it's quite complex. And I remember Michael Burke was presenting the BBC News when I did my first piece for BBC Network News, and we offered, as you always do, you're a phonetic, how to say the name. He said, no, it'll be fine. he didn't say it very, very well at all. No.
The thing is, you can pronounce Michael Burke's name correctly and that be an insult. So
Yeah,
I think
exactly,
it's
yeah.
fine, really.
I mean, Trina Iorwerth could be the name you put down if you wanted to be top of the list.
Yeah. Or if I wanted to go into drag acting or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Drag Race does start in August.
Favourite film?
Favourite film? Oh,
You can throw
gosh.
out a few options.
Yeah, no, lots of favourite films. Yeah, comedy I keep on coming back to would be Planes, Trains and Automobiles, classic Steve Martin. Oh my gosh, I watch films all the time, but it's like, choosing your...
Any you've liked recently?
Yeah, I particularly liked the... it's a Nicolas Cage film.
Oh, you had me.
Gone in 60 Seconds. Leaving Las
Con
Vegas.
Air.
No.
Con Air's so good.
Yeah.
The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent
Oh, wow,
is
that's
a
quite recent,
hilarious film
Does
with
he play
Nicolas
himself
Cage.
in that?
He does. And it's
Nicolas
very,
Cage.
very, very
Is it
funny.
him and Pedro Pascal?
Yeah, I watched it on
Producer
a...
Darryl likes it.
Oh, I'm in.
I watched it on a plane on the way somewhere, and I watched it again on the plane on the way back.
way.
It's a superb film.
Any
Very,
Welsh
very good.
options?
Oh gosh, yeah.
What's the Christmas one with the Santa who's not Santa? I only came to this
The
last year.
old one.
Yeah.
Dinath Ddwy Nadolig.
A Dina Nadolig.
I remember
You
that one
definitely
coming out
have
for the
to
first
watch that.
time.
I would recommend
It was a
having...
musical. It's a musical film. Yeah.
It is. That you don't always expect, I
No.
would say. It comes out of nowhere.
A surprise
A
musical.
surprise
Yeah.
musical.
My
It's
favourite
not
kind.
consistent. This the odd number
Someone
here.
just starts
Yeah.
clicking.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, here we go. That's a classic.
Ibiza is from a similar period as well, and very good. Very, very funny film. Yeah, I like my comedies.
What politician would you say you're most like?
I don't know. I mean, I know who I admire. I really admire David Wigley, and we've become very, very close. And I'd love to be similar to him politically. Others can judge if I am.
Okay. If we put you and Keir Starmer in the octagon, who would win in a fight?
In the Octagon, well, first thing I should say is the Octagon was the nightclub that I used to go to in Bangor.
That's what we mean.
That's what we meant.
That's what we mean.
So if you wanted to put Keir Starmer and me in the Octagon, we'd have a dance off. And
The cap is on backwards.
He's there going, my father was a toolmaker.
yeah, I was just singing a band, so,
Whoa.
Okay, back that up.
You and Robin could collab.
I used to play bass in a death metal
Did you?
band.
What kind of genre? Was it the classic Welsh indie sad boy guitars?
No, it wasn't really, but it was...
A Welsh indie sad boy.
There's many of them.
It was a kind of
We love you.
sort of a funk dance stuff, but we had a great time. It was back in the sort of late early 90s, and it was a fantastic period in Welsh popular music. And
you were very Cymru cool at the time.
Are you singing in Welsh?
Yeah. So Griff Super Furry Animals was on the drums.
Oh, come on, clanger.
It's a claim to fame that more than half the Super Furry Animals have drummed for my bands back in the day.
What was the name of the band?
What were you called?
It was called Chwedig Now, after the year 1969.
Yeah, that's what it was called.
Which was
it was called 69.
It was a significant year in Welsh history.
It was a very significant number.
Nice.
But no, we had a good time. We had a very, very good time.
Wow. What can you remember any names of songs?
Oh, yeah. Orenai was one of our favourites, which means oranges. We played lots of gigs. And, it was good fun.
Loves a bit of fruit.
Okay, this question for everyone, because I think this is quite a hard question. It might not be for Robin, because I know you've stopped. If you could only have one alcoholic drink for the rest of your life, what would be your alcoholic drink of choice? Because you can go for something that's nice, but you wouldn't necessarily want it when you're just sitting and watching TV. So what would you go for?
Well, as I found dates with peanut butter and walnuts recently, I'll go for the drink that I found recently, which isn't an everyday drink, but,
Special
it's Aperol Spritz.
Aperol Spritz.
Yeah,
Aperol
that's good, isn't
Spritz.
it?
What a great choice.
Yeah.
That's very drinks with the girlies. I like that a lot.
Very drinks with the girlies.
That's good.
Picky bits with the girls.
Picky bits with the girls, yeah.
Summer drink.
Yeah,
You know what?
I had a frozen one. I was in Abersoch on Saturday night, and I had a frozen one outside my nana's. It was delicious.
There's also some nice 0% versions of that as well.
Yeah.
Baccaretto do quite a nice one.
Oh, lovely.
I'm very stylish. I love an Aperol Spritz, but I also love a pint of lager. So,
What's your lager of choice?
Not particularly fussy. Well, Crwllin's Largo is particularly nice, but it's very, very strong.
What like kind of
very
6-7% kind of?
Well, I'm not sure if it's meant to be, but it seems
it goes off a lot.
It's a lovely, lovely lager.
Nice.
What would you go for?
Spicy margarita.
Nice.
Yeah, just some chili in there. Jalapenos in there. Delicious.
Well done.
Yeah.
Nice.
What would be yours?
I want to say like a wine, but I become a bit of a prick.
Do you get aggressive?
No, I don't get aggressive. Oh, can you imagine me getting aggressive?
Yes.
It's like what do you mean? You're like a chipmunk.
Can you imagine me getting aggressive, Mel?
You're like a chipmunk stuck in a bin.
You start talking like a wine connoisseur.
You know what you mean? Like you start. Oh, do you give it this in a restaurant? Do you like to smell
I
it?
have been known to pontificate. What would you, if you were to return?
Oh, in my back to where I
your
belong.
pomp.
I used to love a gin and tonic. That was always my
Nice.
go-to.
Nice.
But there's loads of Tiny Rebel do a really good 0% Club Tropica. That's quite nice.
Yeah. Yeah, there's loads of no alcohol options now.
There's a fantastic brewery in Swansea, the Drop Bear brewery.
They do brilliant ones. They sell it in Tesco.
All zero alcohol.
Yeah,
Really,
actually,
really
that's
nice.
probably the best one. It's got very little sugar in it as well.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because sometimes otherwise they're just packed full of sugar.
I could talk about this for ages.
Yeah, I had a
Great company.
non-alcoholic prosecco the other day. It was like drinking
No
mixture.
secco.
No secco,
Yeah.
but it was so sweet.
Yeah.
I actually felt worse the next day.
Yeah,
It was a
sure.
crash.
Sugar crash.
Yeah, I wish I just absolutely got wasted. Yeah.
Final question. If you could move the Welsh capital from Cardiff, where would you put it?
Oh, you know what? In my back garden, so I didn't have to travel sort of 4 hours each way.
How far is it from your front door to the Senate?
It's 196 miles. So
a Welsh context, that's like 4 days.
Yeah. I mean,
Public transport.
I've been lucky enough all my life to get to know Wales really, really well. I was born down in Pontypridd in the valleys, lived in sort of Dolgellau kind of area, Bala area for a while, then brought up from 6 years old in Ynys Môn. So I've always travelled a lot around Wales, and when we moved back up to Anglesey 20 years ago, I was still working in Cardiff a few days a week, so I'm used to doing the trip, but it's still a long way. It's a 4 hour at best, probably more like 4.5 hours on a train or a sort of 4-hour drive. Best drive in the world. It's amazing, but you don't want to do
Not
it too
when
often.
you're in a hurry, though. It's lovely on a sunny day when you're in a hurry.
When you're not stuck behind a tractor.
Yes, yeah.
But it is, in politics, to be serious again now, it's an issue, where people in the north can often feel, everything's done in Cardiff, and the easiest thing politically for me would be to say, yes, it is. Let's stand up against them. I want to bring Wales together. So what you want is to have a government that actually makes sure that it does it
in your back garden.
that in everything it does. Well, let's have it in the middle then. Well, Machynlleth did put itself forward, of course, where Owen Glyndwr's Parliament was, and when the deal to put the Senedd in Cardiff City Hall fell through and they had an open competition, Machynlleth did put itself forward as the
Equally
as the capital of
inconvenient
Wales.
for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I'm very proud of my capital city as well. And I came to university in Cardiff. It's a place I feel very, very happy. But wherever the government is, wherever the Parliament is, it has to feel relevant to the whole of Wales. And I think there's more it can do. And that's one of the things that I want to do in leading Welsh government.
Okay. Rhun ap Iorwerth, thank you so much for coming on the pod. It's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you for the unicorn horns.
My pineapple will live on.
Well, if it's a plural, it can't be unicorn horns, can it? Really
true.
is.
Yeah, what is a collective noun for unicorns?
Well, you were 2 unicorns.
Plaid
There you
leaders.
go.
Unicorn.
It does mean that you're going to have to take one home.
No, that's
We
two
could
of his-
rut.
That's 2 of his 5 a day there.
Get them in the octagon and put them against each other. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you for coming
Diolch yn fawr
on.
iawn. Thank you all. Thank you.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. My name's Will Hayward.
My name is Robin Morgan.
My name's Mel Owen.
And mine's Rhun ap Iorwerth.
Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch.
Ta-ra.